Welcome to the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify.
Hi guys, welcome to the e-commerce growth show. We're into the fifth vlog, this is now, of the third series of the show. This is all about showcasing customers in various different ways, actually. Some of them obviously very directly talking about Segmentify, others like today actually talking about much more kind of a broad area spectrum in terms of e-commerce and solutions and growth and so on. And so this particular episode, I'm talking to a guy called Abe Rossiter. So Abe is currently e-commerce manager of a brand company of ours, a client of ours called Scottsdale Golf. He's based in Manchester, and actually he's managed to carve some time out in the middle of year end, which is awesome. But he's actually from an accountancy background for 5+ years, but he decided to transition into the world of e-commerce, mainly because it was just so dynamic, and he grew a real passion for e-commerce when he realized there's quite a lot of affinity between the accounting side of things and the process involved with it, but also the kind of strategic side of e-commerce. And so really for the last couple of years, he's been on the front line, scrabbling around in the school of hard knocks, really sort of learning and all sorts of fantastic insights. So I'm really pleased to have him on the show today. And also something else we'd love to talk about is that he's really passionate about the homeless, and he supports a lot of charities in the Manchester area. And so I'm going to probably dive into that a little bit as well. But hey, Abe, how are you doing?
Hey, yeah, not too bad, Phil, not too bad.
Awesome. Thank you so much for carving some time out.
Yeah, no problem.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, so why don't we start then? I mean, we talked briefly a bit about what you've been doing to support homelessness in Manchester and so on. What's tell us a bit more about that. How come you're involved in that stuff?
I think when I was younger, I could see a lot of people around me and see it myself, kind of how easy it was to get off track, to get, I guess, lost in life without having a good support network. And I think before I moved to Manchester, I did a good bit of fundraising. I was big on running a half marathon, something like that. And when I moved to Manchester, obviously you see how stark the problem is. It was a lot worse than where I'd lived previously. And I just wanted to get involved with it, really. So I think first thing I did was go up to a guy on the street and say, like, well, what charities do you work with? What charities do you think need support? And from there, that's led to me dealing with multiple charities in Manchester and working on a few really cool, exciting projects to help out.
Yeah. No, that sounds, I mean, it's really encouraging to hear that you do that. I mean, it's one of those areas, I think it's got quite a lot of stigmas attached to it. A lot of people have got a lot of opinions about it. I mean, my question for you, from my kind of worldview of it, is from your experience, what are the key drivers as to what actually takes a person from being in a family or in a job, whatever it might be, to being on the street? What do you experience in terms of why people are on the streets, like why they're homeless?
Well, I mean, they say a lot of people are only 2 paychecks away from being homeless, and I think with especially maybe a lot of kind of more unskilled jobs where there's a quicker turnaround, I think all it takes now is for someone to lose a job to not have that support from the government that I think was there maybe 20 years ago. That it can happen quite quickly. I speak to guys who 6 months ago had a job, had a flat, were doing well, and some one big thing's gone wrong from them, one thing to another. 6 months later, they're on the streets. But again, it's very much down to your support network. If you've got a family who will take you in, look after you, help you out, that's one thing. But I think a lot of people can't necessarily rely on that.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it's definitely an area that is challenging to me, hearing what you're saying, because, I mean, I've been through all sorts of situations where, as a Christian, I'm walking on the street and I know I actively sort of spoke to people quite often, and I often felt that, a lot of these people, rightly or wrongly, were, on drugs, or all the money that they were going to take off you was just to feed a habit of some kind. So I kind of built a bit of a judgment against it. And then I sort of reverted to like, oh, I'll do, you know, meal vouchers, or I'll give food rather than money and stuff. So I don't know. It's an ongoing challenge for me, I think, this whole area.
I mean, I think that's very much, I mean, I wouldn't generally as a rule, sometimes I don't always stick to my own rule, but I wouldn't give someone money. But all the guys around me who are local to me, I know what their favorite snack is, you know. You figure things like that, and really the charities I'm part of, the goal of them is to get people into housing, which is the key thing I'm trying to do. You know, it's not a great idea just to give them money, but you want to give them tools and help them out. Give them some value, man. You even just stopping and chatting to somebody, whether you give them something or not, just kind of humanizes. Again, because I think what you say about, you know, people just walking past the homeless, you know, you get dehumanized if you get 1,000 people walk past you a day not paying any attention to you. I think it takes a toll on you as a person.
No, I like that. I think there's certainly from my perspective, there's an element of fear involved in some way, that people just don't want to reach out because it's scary in some respects sometimes also. But I like the fact that, you know, it doesn't have to be monetary. You don't have to be worried that you've got to keep giving your money. There's so many other things you can do. But I mean, obviously, you know, if any of the guys out there listening and watching, you know, want to get in touch with you about that side of it, obviously we'll have a chance to sort of mention how to get in touch with you later on. But I did want to bring that into the show, just to sort of, you know, bring it up as a topic really, and perhaps we can you know, do some stuff on it in the future, and maybe we can help each other out in that area as well, you know.
Brilliant.
But you know, thanks so much for that. I mean, so kind of moving on to the kind of theme, if you like, for today. We talked earlier about the idea of frictionless e-commerce, and it's not something I'm you know, done a lot of research in. I know that as part of your kind of frontline experience and getting into this new role that you're now in for the last couple of years and making it a success, you've done a lot of research. And so there's quite a lot of great stuff that we're going to talk about around this idea of frictionless commerce. Do you want to sort of give us a flavor of what it means to you, that term?
To me, it's looking at your customer journeys from the moment they arrive on the site, and how to make things as intuitive, as natural, and as simple as possible for them. You want to anticipate the objections they might have before they've thought of them. You want to anticipate what products they want before they've looked at them. You know, you want to look at making your conversion paths as short as possible, because the decision is so easy for them to make. You know, and I think there's a lot more to it, but I think that's the core of it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. So we talked about like a perfect scenario. What in your mind is the perfect situation in this area?
Well, I mean, so this is just looking at new customers, someone who's never been to your site before. For us, we do a lot of Google Shopping, and so someone will come to your site. They will go directly to a product page. They've never seen your homepage. They've never seen your categories. Never seen anything. But the perfect situation would be they go there, they get to your product page, the site loads quickly, aesthetically it's good to look at, they're happy with delivery times that you're stating there, add it to basket, they're happy with your payment methods, maybe you offer multiple payment methods, you know, they want to pay by finance, they want to use some of that Klarna, they can, they trust you reputationally as a brand to deliver, and then they trust you first of all to take their card details. So that would be the perfect scenario. Straight to a product page, add to basket, convert. And that can be done, you know, that conversion can happen in 3-4 minutes from first initially knowing about your brand.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so that's a great scenario. So what else is going on then outside of that scenario? I mean, and you mentioned a percentage as well of certain people that are doing that. Is that the 40% you mentioned?
So no, that's now for single product and single touch point, it's about 25% of all our orders. So you've got to separate. You've then got the next step, which is single touch points. So they've just come to your site, they convert whilst they're still on your site for the first time, and maybe they looked at multiple products. And I think that's where you guys have been really helpful to us, is that I spend a lot of time looking at user recordings through third-party softwares, and basically all I'm trying to do is understand where the dead points are on our site, where something stops people from buying. Do they get to a certain point of the screen and drop off? And as much as you can look at that data in analytics, just actually watching people navigate can be priceless. And I think I was able to see how much people were engaging with the Segmentify sliders. So someone would come to the site, they've searched for a Hugo Boss jacket. They come to the site and that's not the jacket for them. You want to be able to show them in the slider the alternative that they want. You don't want them to have to go, oh, I don't like that jacket. I'm going to go to the top, I'm going to go to the top navigation bar. I'm going to look in their categories. I'm going to have to search through 100 jackets. You want it that one of the 6 things on the sliders is the perfect jacket for them, to avoid ever needing to go through pages and pages of information and of products, and again, I think that goes back to what I'm saying about just making it as easy as possible. And it also applies to, your upsells, your cross sells. If somebody comes to us and wants to buy a golf putter, they go to the golf putter page. We then want the category page, the recommendation slider to go, oh, well, if you're buying a golf putter, maybe you want to buy a little home putting kit so you can practice at home. Again, you're anticipating the products that they might want before they've even had a chance to think that they want them.
Yeah, completely. And so, just out of interest, how many SKUs do you have?
Probably about 2,000, but because of growth, it's growing so quickly. And again, I think that was another reason we're grateful for the sliders, is that we used to do those manually. And the guys in the team, they know the business through and through. But there are just, when you've got so many SKUs and you've got so many new products coming on, it's impossible to keep up on a manual level, I think. Or at least to do it effectively on a manual level.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, where you've got a lot of SKUs, I was going to say to you, how important is the machine learning, and how do you know, without sounding a bit too obvious in terms of, people are buying it, how do you know that the machine learning is working, bulletproof? You know what I mean? Put your money on it.
Yeah. I mean, that can be the tougher part. That can be, again, where you look through your Hotjar recordings. Obviously, Segmentify is pretty good for its dashboard for understanding the conversion rate of people clicking on the sliders to converting. I think those conversion rates in the dashboard are a really a key indicator for us.
Sure. And sorry, go on.
I was going to say they've been quite good, because we've been able to see when they're dropping before, go through to the guys at Segmentify and say, look, there's an issue here. These aren't getting click through. These aren't getting, the impression rate is high, but people aren't clicking through them. And you guys were able to kind of rejig, I guess, how the algorithm works a couple of times for us.
Is that so? Some of that insight you were talking about, do you get that through Trendify, or is it purely through the metrics on the dashboard?
So I probably take my data from every possible different source. So I do use Trendify. We've actually used Trendify to identify stocking issues before, where we can anticipate that something's getting a lot of views and selling a lot, that actually we're going to run out of it. Equally, it's been good to point out problems on the site, because obviously, it says things like, here are your most viewed that aren't converting. For example, one of them, we found out that in error, we'd only uploaded one image for the product. And I think that would have gone amiss otherwise with so many product pages.
No, that's brilliant. So it's sort of flagging up kind of errors and stuff. So that idea of rolling up the data to the Trendify reports, you found that useful in terms of just making sure that you're highlighting the best products in the moment, if you like, for
absolutely. And where really, I think our timing for getting Segmentify worked out really well, because I think we got on board with you guys in March of this year. It was a very unfortunate turn of events for a while after that, but it completely changed our business model in terms of what products we were selling. So Suddenly nobody wanted to buy clothes because nobody was going out and seeing their mates. Nobody was going out onto the golf course because everything was closed. But what people were doing was buying huge amounts of golf equipment. And it was machine learning, both with some of our smart bidding campaigns within Google, but also within the sliders on Segmentify, that picked up on that and capitalized on that, I believe, quicker than a human could have. I noticed that the sliders on Segmentify changed over the course of 48 hours. And suddenly we're then promoting at every possible point these products that were converting in insanely well. And I think it led to us being very successful over a short period where a lot of people struggled in our industry.
That's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's almost sounds like it's like a virtuous cycle, like the engine really quickly adapts and picks up what's going on, feeds the team then obviously then puts in place the action at the top of the funnel, and then that virtuous cycle sort of continues. No, absolutely. We had an interesting scenario similar actually with Celtic, and the same kind of idea that they had no idea that that they'll go and brand anything, beer mats to car mats to whatever, and with a lot of SKUs, thousands of SKUs, there's no way they would know that the car mats were flying, like literally, they couldn't get them in quick enough, and the machine was picking that up to the point where they could then act accordingly, sort the supply chain out, and obviously make a lot of money out of it. You mentioned earlier about some of the tweaks. I don't know, do you recall any of the sort of, I wouldn't say advanced, but like more than just taking the widget out of the box and let it do its thing? Can you recall any of the sort of tweaks that you analysed and worked with the team on?
So it was understanding the breadcrumb of the hierarchy of our categories. So where it was giving the information through Segmentify of the structure of our categories from the top of it. Say it could be golf clubs would be the top, and then it could be golf drivers, and then it could be tailor-made golf drivers, and it could be 9.5 degree tailor-made golf drivers.
Right.
By breaking up that breadcrumb and understanding it, you were then able to give cross sells from one category to another. So you're able to say, if it's within this subcategory, recommend this other category. And that's where I mentioned about say getting a putting mat for a golf putter. That was where that came in.
That's awesome.
Some of the stuff was beyond my head. Sometimes I just said, look, this needs to happen. And I don't quite get how you guys made it happen, but you did.
No, that's brilliant.
The first thing that happened was the sliders loaded, and I said, guys, they're just a bit slow. And sure enough, you come back the next day, and they were lightning quick.
Really? Wow. I suppose that, like you say, that's a kind of a benefit of this passion that we have, that we've got this in-house team that continue to drive the platform forward, and obviously drive it forward with you as well.
I think that was very much the reason we went for Segmentify. We're actually the first company we looked at in this field, but we went for you guys because we're all crazy busy, and do you know what? Using machine learning for product recommendations isn't a strength of a golf retailer. And so we were looking for a team that was going to be collaborative, that was going to bring ideas to the table, that wasn't just going to give us a piece of software and say, like, there you go.
Yeah, no, completely. And I mean, this, but this whole idea of us, being in a monthly rolling contract, driving the revenue contribution on a monthly basis is kind of our whole kind of culture, if you like. So it's great that it kind of works on the front line, working with guys like yourself. What have you out of the platform? Obviously, there's our 4 pillars, if you like. What have you actually deployed at this stage from the platform?
So currently, we are recommendations definitely always going to be the lion's share of what we've got. Push is a slow burner, obviously, because we've seen, as we bring more customers to the site, I think we've probably got about 8,000 people with push notifications enabled.
Wow.
I like them being utilized more as a win back. So they're one that I'm going to be watching the growth for over the next year. But a lot of the campaigns that we want to use on there might be somebody's bought something from you, and you actually want to email them in 6 months. You want to give them a push notification in 6 months' time when the upgrade of that's come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think because of that, that's the one I'm gunning for, to see how it progresses. In terms of email, we're working closely with you guys for the integration with our ESP, which I personally am really, really excited for.
We are too.
That'll bring a new level of it, because again, I want those sliders, those product recommendations that we talked about. That needs to be a win back as an email. There's definitely an opportunity to be plugged there, and I can see where the current ESP and you guys, your technology, can meet to bring something really valuable to the table.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, we're quite excited about that. We appreciate your kind of working with us on that. It's that idea, isn't it, of getting the same kind of granular machine learning into the email campaigns as you're getting in, say, the push or the quality of the recommendations that are coming out.
I mean, absolutely. And when I talk about earlier about, obviously, looking for that perfect conversion path. That perfect conversion path is a million different paths for a million different people.
Yeah.
And by bringing in a lot of hyper personalization into our ESP, we've already seen the benefits of it. A year ago we sent out, we had a cart abandonment, which is great, but then we just sent out a newsletter that went to everybody. And we do not work with that model at all anymore.
No.
Everything's segmented, so that if we've got a new brand coming out, it's going to the people who buy that brand. If we've got a sale coming out, it's going to the people we know are more likely to convert when a discount's offered. So I think it's just bringing that extra level of personalization that, for me, is something I've pushed so much in the business, and the guy, everyone's behind it.
No,
I'm really excited to see what that brings.
Yeah, completely. How does the segmentation element work, like from your side, in terms of those customer types you talked about?
So it's splitting it up, isn't it? It can get complicated because, first of all, you can split by brand. That we know from our data that if somebody's bought an Under Armour top, if you send them an email about Under Armour coming out, they're more likely to convert than someone who hasn't. You then got to take that further and go, what is it, a price point issue? Someone who buys a set of £1,500 irons, not going to be interested if you've got a sale on for a set of irons for 300 quid. But then there's also the crossover of the brand, which is where it gets tough. We know that if somebody's purchased X brand, they're actually quite likely to buy Y brand. And that, again, is usually a price point issue. People who buy premium brands stick to premium brands. People who buy the cheaper brands stick to the cheaper brands. So it's all about understanding those different segments, and I'm also split testing as much as you can. If you ever think that you've got the perfect combination, the perfect setup with your advertising, with your ESPs, with your messaging website, you're doing something wrong almost. I don't think it ever ends. As you learn more, you make more changes.
No, completely. So, like going back, I appreciate I'm talking a little bit naively here, so apologies, but in terms of you actually gathering the respective data segments together, where are they put together? Where are they held? And how do you then action? How does it look in terms of an end-to-end process technologically, if you like?
So now, luckily, our ESP involves quite a lot of automation that we can set out conditional logic rules to say, we want people who've done this action and this and this, and it will provide a list of people on our website who've done that.
Got it.
Which has been brilliant, because I use those lists then for our Facebook campaigns or for observations in our Google ads. The other side of it is still me just trawling through the data, doing it as quite a manual process. building an RFM model to find out who your most valuable customers are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a mix, but more and more I'm wanting to make it so that we can just do it through our ESP, and that can just be one centralized thing, because I don't want to spend a lot of time building these data models myself.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. And I'm just trying to, figuring it out from a Segmentify's point of view, and obviously knowing what we're doing, kind of with you in terms of the integration, and we're feeding the user profiles at that deep granular level that then can match the correct machine data to the campaign logic that you've created. And actually then that cuts you out. You don't have to bother doing all that, behind the scenes. So I can understand. That's why I was asking you about that, because I can see how it takes a lot of weight off you in terms of that segmentation piece, because we're not actually doing the segmentation. We're feeding quality one-to-one profile data into the ESP, which then is firing out that offline, what do you call that, offline acquisition? I mean, that idea of then sending out, the accurate email to the non-buyer at this stage, or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think more and more I can see it. My role, I would love to see in 2 years' time, kind of now it's moving towards using machine learning systems, whether it be through our ESP, through Segmentify, through Google Ads, or through Facebook. Currently, a lot of it now is feeding information from one source into the other. So I take good data that I've learned from our ESP and I feed it into Google, or I feed it into Facebook. But the dream is one day that actually we have those systems all to be fully integrated, that everything's just dynamically updating itself, that I can simply check to make sure everything's going all right and think about what new ideas there could be.
Yeah, no, completely. Create some headspace, right? We all need that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about I don't know whether you use search. Do you use our search tool? What do you do in that arena?
Yeah. It's that was quite cool, because we had a search bar where you click on the search bar at the top of the page and it would take you to a separate search page.
Right.
Oh,
really?
Which
Wow.
I hated, and luckily you guys were there to give us the nudge that we redesigned it so it was all on site, so we were able to make it look quite slick. But also, and I don't know if you feel this, but I always pay attention. I buy probably too many clothes, and you see how the kind of results people's searches get you. So if you search for 2 words, will it bring you a search that just involves one of those words? Or there's all kind of variables that I find that even larger companies, their search bars were giving me loads of irrelevant stuff.
Yeah.
So it was quite nice actually to see the way in which the Segmentify search was structured. Meant that I thought that it gave really, really accurate results. And again, people wouldn't have to click to view the results and then search through it. It was very often just giving them the product on the slider, on the search itself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've been doing quite a lot of work in the search domain, and again, we welcome your feedback as well on that as we continue to release the features. But we've just brought out a new feature actually, where we've got it's like an auto suggest, really, I suppose, when you haven't actually started searching for anything yet. So you've gone on and you've clicked into the search bar, but you can then obviously tailor make the personalization of that initial view of the search bar, which has been a request from the customers actually, and then of course it's driven by the machine learning after that. But we've also got lots of plans within the arena of search and merch over the sort of medium term. So it'll be interesting to see whether that helps you and your teams, with the number of SKUs you've got from a category merchandising point of view, personalizing that better with the same sort of machine learning as the Rex on the widgets do.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And as you guys know, we were always very keen to be at the front line of whatever new developments you're coming out with. So no, that sounds really cool.
No, cool. We'll certainly get you involved in that for sure. So so this 45% figure, I remember now, you were saying that's a kind of an online side of things. There's a whole raft 55% kind of offline. Is there anything else within that sort of segment, that large segment, that you haven't talked about already that you'd like to around that side of things?
Sorry, the 45 or the 55?
The 55.
The 55. Yeah, I think that's, again, and it's almost going to be predictable what I'm going to say. I think that's the moment that person leaves your site.
Yeah.
You need to be as hyper personalized as you can.
Yeah.
You also need to be as omnipresent as you can. You know, I know I see brands where maybe they just focus on Facebook ads, or maybe they just do email winbacks. And all I see time and time again is different people respond to different mediums. So you need a consistency in your message, in that you're showing them the appropriate product for that person at the right time. So for example, if they've viewed a product but they've not added to cart, you want to show them good alternatives that are similar to what they're looking at. But maybe keep it a bit broader, maybe throw in a bit of variation. If they've added to cart but they've not purchased, you want to make sure that that product added to cart is always at the forefront. But then you want to show them very similar products, because they've given you a serious indication of their taste. But then to get that out across all those channels, I think, is the key thing, because some people will respond well to an email, other people are big Facebook scrollers, and if you show them an ad twice, they're going to keep seeing it, and eventually they'll click through to it. But I think and again, I think actually your push notifications come in quite well to that.
Are there any particular retargeting channels that are more successful from your experience? Is it very much, like you mentioned earlier, different on a brand by brand basis, or what have you found out from that side of things?
So for me, I've always been a really big fan of Facebook. Again, because you can structure your campaigns, that you break it down into different ad groups. You've got an ad group that's just targeting people who've looked at products but not added to basket, and that the target of that is to get them to add it to basket. And then they go into the next funnel that says, right, okay, now they've moved down here, they've added something to basket, this one is to get them to close. Which seems counterintuitive, to put a level of your campaign in there that's not actually targeted at people buying, it's just targeted at getting them to add to basket. But it then so massively increased the number of potential people to advertise to who had added to basket. It worked very effectively. It got us better results.
Do you think that's linked to the demographic of people that are your customer, or do you think that's a wider?
I think that I believe that can work in a lot of industries, to be fair. I don't think that's specific to us. And in any I would actually figure that it would probably be less specific, because our target our kind of key buyer can quite often be a middle-aged older man who might not spend nearly as much time browsing on socials as, say, an 18-year-old. So I'd find that people in different sectors actually might get more from this than we do.
No, for sure. No, it's really interesting. What about peak season? What about Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Any tips, any big things you're doing to prepare for it? Any wisdom around that?
Seasonal bid adjustments in your advertising, I think, has been a really good one. That's worked for us really, really well over sale periods before.
What is that?
So a seasonal bid adjustment is basically where you tell, with your Google advertising, you say to it, look, we're expecting that people are going to convert extra well. And so we don't mind you increasing the bids. Equally, if you're a fully manual bid campaign, then I would just increase your bids. But last time we did that worked incredibly well. And we're really excited now for Q4. We're very much already planning it, speaking to the guys over getting all our ad assets sorted so that everything's done weeks in advance, because if you put in what we did last year and then you actually account for the growth both through our ad revenues and through other channels, then predict what we're going to do in this Q4. It's going to be an exciting time for us. It's huge growth.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be a more intense peak than ever, given what's happened, or what is your thoughts on it around COVID?
I do. According to Google's forecasts, yes, it is. Now, this is only in our industry. It's golf specific, but when I speak to the guys there and looked at their demand and spend models over the past couple of years, and then looking where it's at Q4, for us, it's unprecedented. But I do believe that that's going to transfer to all of them, because it's been such a change in culture of people's buying habits. You've got people who always would have gone into a store, being forced to go online. And what I think is happening is people who were reluctant to it are trying it and realizing that was really good. That was cheaper. That was way more convenient than I thought. I can get free delivery and free returns. And they're the converted now. They're now e-commerce buyers from now on.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because I've been looking at lots of sort of company announcements and trading updates from the likes of ASOS to obviously Pets at Home and what's of Switzerland even, massive uplifts in online revenue. And you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there is a whole, and people have said to me before, but the penny has really dropped, that there are still a massive cohort of people that were not comfortable buying online. Or they might browse online, but they're going into the shop to get their stuff. And actually, you're right. Things like returns would have been a big barrier for someone like myself. If I've got to buy another pair of boots or something for the other half, and they're £100, and I'm like, well, it's a big box, it's bulky, and what's going to happen about returns and stuff? I'm going to have to go in and get one, But the fact that it's made so much easier now does then make you a bit more of an advocate to just give it a go. So I can understand why it's going to be really big this year, clearly, for those reasons.
Absolutely.
I hope it's a massive success for you, obviously, and everybody out there who's watching and listening right now. I hope that you've picked up some cool insights from Abe, who's been furiously learning about all this stuff on the front line for the past few years, and bringing, I think, some of the kind of more rigid process and analytical stuff from accounting into this world. And I think that's really great that you've been able to do that. Just to sort of go back to what I was saying at the very beginning about all the great stuff that you're doing in the homeless side of it, and also in e-commerce in Scottsdale Golf and so on. If any of the guys want to get hold of you to chat about anything, your experience, Segmentify, personalisation, your strategies, the homeless charities that you support, and so on, what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
It's just my email address. Just catch me at the Abe Rossiter at gmail.com.
Cool. That's SSITER, right? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. And I know you've given plenty of tips today, but just one thing to close on. Anything from your personal life or your work life or anything else that you would consider a bit of a nugget of wisdom that you've picked up in all your years that you'd love to share with the guys? Not to put you on the spot, clearly.
I think it's just use your data. There are so many companies out there, especially in the SME range, that I think, what is the statistics? 80% of business data isn't utilized.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And it's even if you don't know what you're doing, it's worth having a look at. You never know what you're going to find. I can spend an hour and a half looking at spreadsheets, get absolutely nothing from it. Another time, you have a look and you just spot something, and something that leads to an insight that leads to an increase in revenue or a huge cost saving. But
Use your data. Yeah, sounds great. Well, thanks again, Abe. Awesome to speak to you. Thanks for carving some time out. And
no problem me.
Thanks, man. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And it just remains me to finish off by saying, if you haven't signed up to the vlog series or the podcast and so on, please do head over to segmentify.com/EGS, and you can catch everything that comes out there. And if you want to get involved, or want us to research any particular topics, or you have any questions and so on, just give me a shout anytime at Phill@segmentify.com. But thanks, Abe, so much again.
No worries.
Fantastic. And we look forward to speaking to you all again very soon.